We like Hall of Famers on this program. We're fond of them. We love them. And we're bringing a new one on the program next. Peter Vecsey. If you're unfamiliar with him, he was once a legend in the NBA. Still is, but I mean, he was actually an active member of the media. He's a Hall of Fame NBA journalist. And considering we're starving for content, interesting content, because we don't believe in clickbait here. So let's bring the Hall of Famer on board. Let's hear his thoughts about the Warriors, about the NBA in general, and hopefully have some fun here in the Golden Days.
They always find something to nitpick, and that's because there's expectations for us to win. Leave me alone this summer.
Woo! Let's go! In a minute, I'ma need a sentimental man or woman to pump me up.
We're gonna have to do openings. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Golden Days. I am your host for the afternoon, Cyrus Saatsaz, or evening, depending on where you're at. You can follow me on Threads and Instagram at DogWild. Over on Twitter, my handle is at SurfJournalist. The program on both platforms at Golden Days Pod. We're going to bring Peter Vecsey on the program in just a second. Got to give some love first, though, to our sponsors. And first up on the itinerary in terms of who supports us, pays our bills, because we don't exist without this aspect of it. And that is Decades Official. I just had a chance to catch up with the drummer of this incredible band, Billy DeBono, who has given me just a recap of an insanely busy summer for the band. They recently played a set with Everlast. They're getting paid to for sets in front of audiences that sometimes measure in the tens of thousands. That's how professional Decades is. They're legit. This is their full-time job, folks. If you're making money on a full-time basis as a musician, you clearly know what you're doing. You clearly are doing something right, and you have an opportunity to hire them. Side note, one little caveat here. Please don't hit them up and ask if someone in your party can sing along with the band. They do not take on additional members. Just an FYI, just so you don't get let down or disappointed when you reach out to book them. They play by themselves. I'm sure maybe if it was like a song or something. But anyways, look, Eddie DeBartolo, the former 49ers owner, hired them to play a private set up in his compound in Montana. That man has explicable taste. He hired Decades for good reason. Decades is also the official band for every 49ers pregame rally next door to Levi Stadium at Great America. They call those red zone rallies. Decade is the band for that. They could be the band for you. All you have to do is go to decadesofficial.com. Again, decadesofficial.com. Follow them on Facebook and Instagram at decadesofficial. That's where they posted a picture with Everlast. Again, an awesome band, especially if you love 90s, 2000s music. And they're available for you. Email Kyle at atomicmusicgroup.com. Again, Kyle at atomicmusicgroup.com. If you want an opportunity to have Decades playing your set, playing your event, whether it's like a wedding, we could be talking about an anniversary, we could be talking about a birthday, maybe it's a good old-fashioned backyard rager. Side note, hit up your Uncle Si if you do that. I'm coming to your party. Maybe it's a corporate event. Maybe you need something akin to the Catalina wine mixer for your event. That's what they're there for. They are existing to be the prestige worldwide of your party. Hire them. Also mention the program. They'll give you a discount, and thank me later if you do, because I am confident. Hell, I guarantee that they are not going to let your event down. Check them out, decadesofficial.com. And a fantastic group of people, a phenomenally talented band. And again, thank me later if you book them. Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel, the official sportsbook of the Believe Network, and that includes Golden Daze. And again, I was hyping this up on social media on Twitter because one of the really cool things about FanDuel is that they are not discriminatory against the WNBA. And I bring that up because on V for Valkyries, which Sophia Jones and I do every Monday at 3 p.m. Pacific time, follow us on social media for scheduling updates because sometimes we have to make adjustments to that. But a week and change ago, FanDuel had odds of plus 2,500 to bet on the Valkyries to reach the 25 win mark. Since that time, the Valkyries have been undefeated, and if they win 4 of their last 5, they're going to hit that. You could have made major coin betting on the Valkyries as they make a postseason push with their magic number at 3. There are incredibly already lines available if you want to bet on the Warriors, who only have 9 players on their roster right now. Nonetheless, you can literally lay down some ducats on your Warriors with FanDuel, an awesome sports book, the sports book in this competitive sports paradigm. They have the overwhelming market share rather, of sports gamblers out there for damn good reason. California, legalize it, please. FanDuel, go check them out and thank me later. And speaking of greatness, let's bring on a Hall of Fame NBA journalist, the Kurt Gowdy winner, I believe back in 2009, Peter Vecsey. The dude was a shit stirrer in the NBA for decades as a columnist, as a broadcaster. He was on those panels for all the major broadcasts on NBC, TNT, or maybe it was TBS back then. I can't remember. But my point is, he was influential. He was powerful. I believe he's mostly retired now. And we're going to bring Peter Vecsey on next here on the Golden Days. All right, that man next to me is a living legend. If you're not old enough to have been watching NBA basketball since the 80s, I don't know, maybe even the 70s, Peter, you can enlighten me and others. I started watching in the mid-80s. Sleepy Floyd was my first basketball hero. And his teammate, by the way, was Joe Barry Carroll, what was the nickname you gave him? It was infamous, right?
I had a couple for him, but I don't like to pick on him because when he wrote his book, he was kind to me in his book. So
all right, there you go. I think it was Joe Barely Cares, but that was a long time ago. And Peter, you were
and Joe Barry Apathy, yeah.
And Joe Barry. What may I ask? Just because I was too young to fully follow Joe Barry Carroll in a manner that would give me a proper context. Was he just apathetic? Like, was the focus not there? Like, why the nickname?
So we're jumping right into Joe Barry. I have a great Joe Barry story, but I listen to people about people that I really trust and admire. And Johnny Bach was the coach of the Warriors of Joe Barry, and I just remember so many times him just being irate, so angry about Joe Barry. He just, he didn't, Joe, I don't know anybody knew Johnny Bach. I mean, he wore cowboy boots. He probably had a gun in his in the back there. He was like, I think his son was a trooper.
Okay.
So I don't know. He was a Fordham coach, so I had some history with him. He coached John Andres, who became a great commentator for the Knicks and stuff. Anyway, I listened to him, and so I based a lot of what I wrote about Joe Barry on what Johnny Bach said, I must say.
And Johnny Bach, just to add some context here, I have very little familiarity with him, but he was the head coach of the Warriors from 83 to 86. Was George Karl his successor? I mean, can you remember?
Don't ask me stuff like
fair
that.
Enough, fair enough.
Fair enough. But he more than that. You could go to Phil Jackson and Tex Winter and Johnny Bach were his assistant coaches when they were winning their first 3 championships. So they're very influential on Phil Jackson's coaching career. So I mean that's how, and he was influential in my writing. And
yeah,
to this day, I many mistakes I've made in my life. One of them was when he was assistant coach for Doug Collins with the Wizards when Jordan was playing for the Wizards. he invited me down to Washington. He said, "Come down to Washington. I have so many stories I would love to tell you." He liked me. I liked him. I didn't go. And, I know I blew an awful lot of great stories. And, he retired and lived to be married a younger woman, very pretty woman. He was cool. He was
good for him. Bravo. Look, it's easy to have these regrets. Like I one time, I don't know if you're familiar with the actor Ewan McGregor. Like he played Obi-Wan Kenobi in the Star Wars movies. And please forgive me if that nerdology is going over your head, but he's a fairly prominent actor, and I passed up an opportunity to sit down with him for 30 minutes. And in hindsight, I'm still kicking myself for that. But look, it's hindsight's 50-50, right? It's one of those things where you didn't know at the time.
No, I did. I did know. I knew that I should go. I knew I would go on these ventures. That's what I was all about. When people like Johnny would invite me to come down and, sit down with him and hang out with him. I would do that a lot. But the ones that I blew were the ones that I, to this day. Another one was Al McGuire. I knew Al as a coach of Belmont Abbey, for Christ's sake. Nobody would remember that.
No, I don't. Sorry.
Yeah, well, that was before Marquette. And a couple of my teammates from high school played for him, and I went by there and stayed a couple of weeks at Belmont Abbey. And I knew he was sick. I should have gone and talked to him. I know I would have gotten unbelievable stories. So that's another one. Yeah.
Well, guilt to me is a trait that represents you have some goodness in you, right? Because if you didn't feel that regret, you'd be a pretty heartless mofo, right? So I mean, don't beat yourself too much.
No, I don't beat myself. I mean, I did a lot of really good interviews. I let me switch gears. So I did when Frank McGuire. Frank McGuire, my God, coach of North Carolina, South Carolina, the Warriors when Wilt scored his 100 points.
Wow.
When he got sick, he had a stroke. I went down to South Carolina and I spent several days with him in South Carolina, and his speech was messed up. And I in the days that I spent down there, we actually went out to eat and stuff with his wife, and I could pick up his speech and I could understand him. And I wrote 2 columns on Frank McGuire. So I did do things like that, and that was a great thing in my life to do that. And to get letters from Frank's, in-laws or, relatives, whatever, for what I did, that's very meaningful. I save a lot of that stuff.
Good.
And Frank offered to, he wanted me to write his book, actually. And he said, "I'm going to give you all the money. You take all the money and you write my book." And let me tell you, he was from New York. He hung out with priests and gangsters. I mean, he was unbelievable guy. And I committed to it. I used an agent, famous agent, and I was this close to signing it. And I just was deluged with stuff that I was doing. I had so many things I was doing. I backed out. I regret that one. Let me tell you.
When you say priests,
not for the money, but the stories.
Yeah, the stories. What are your thoughts on and Peter Vecsey? You can follow him on Twitter at Peter Vecsey1. And again, if you're part of the younger crowd there, and I'd say approximately a third of our audience is, Peter, you were one of the voices of the NBA. I mean, you were part of the television panels that, when your words came out, it's what people talked about back when water coolers were a thing. Like, you were the one implanting the ideas. You were, I mean, and again, you're a Hall of Famer. You won the award, I believe, in 2009, the Kurt Gowdy Award. And you bring up stories, which the NBA to me is all about narratives. It's one of many reasons why it's so attractive. I mean,
sports, life. It's all about stories. Yeah.
And that too, right? Yes.
Everybody has at least one great one in them.
At least 100% right. And I feel like a great journalist will discover that, can find that and pull that out of an individual. I love where you're going with this. My question to you, sir, is in today's NBA, I don't know how much you're covering it. I mean, the paradigm, the media paradigm it's shifted so drastically from when you were doing this on a full-time basis to now. Do you still see the stories? Like, do you still see good content, or are you disappointed? Your thoughts on today's NBA media and media in general?
I read good stories. Yeah, I mean there are some really good writers. I read some of these features like Athletic it's got so many good writers. I'm not just reading basketball. And since I retired in 2012. My goodness, and I started reading the New York Times in 2000 and around there. I never did when I was writing for the Post or the Daily News or USA Today. My brother wrote for the New York Times, and I didn't read him either. But
may I ask why? Sorry to interrupt, but why?
I just didn't have any respect for the way they covered it. Like, look, my brother's a great writer. Let me tell you, he's a great writer. But I know that when I went into a situation in the NBA. I'm going to do the NBA because that's all I was covering. I knew stuff that nobody else did, and I knew how to get information. When he would write a column about whatever, he's just going in there blind for the most part. He was really big on baseball and even soccer, I guess. But so he would not be blind in baseball. But if he was going to branch out and he was doing columns on everything. I knew that he didn't know, and so it really didn't mean anything to me. We had a columnist on the New York Post. His name was Paul Zimmerman, who wound up writing for Sports Illustrated. He was a tremendous columnist, tremendous writer, track and field, football, and whenever when I wasn't I just did NBA. So when he was going to do an NBA column for the Post when he worked for us, he would come to me and ask me questions before going in to write. He was so smart. And I would give him the best I had. I would even give him stuff that I'd give nobody else, because he was such a good researcher. He did his homework. So I had great respect for Paul Zimmerman. Anyway.
And your brother is your older brother, right? Or correct? Is George.
Yeah.
You joined me and Rick Barry a few years back, the Hall of Famer Rick. I was blessed to be his executive producer at the start of the century, at the turn of the century, I'm sorry. And we've had a friendship that goes till today. He comes on this show regularly still. We invited you on a few years back when we launched the Rick Barry show on Believe. And one thing that stuck out to me in that conversation, and I mostly just sat back, it was mostly just you and Rick, because, what am I going to do? Like, it was just a joy for me to be his sidekick and executive producer for that program. But I was fascinated with a lot of stories you were bringing up regarding old school New York hoops. I mean, we're talking, legend like Rutgers, the legendary pickup games, Blacktop. How did you and your brother become prominent sports journalists?
Well, my father was a sports writer, so there you go. He was the sports editor of the Long Island Press. My mother was the society editor of the Long Island Press, and so that's how it started.
Wow.
And
okay.
My father's legacy. Well, we could go into my parents. We could talk about my parents, what they did for the industry, because they both helped start the union and got fired as a result. And then my father wound up working for Associated Press and for the Daily News. But my father's legacy, I was thinking about it the other day, is he got so many people jobs. Not only me, I always told people, he got me every job that I ever had while he was, in the beginning of my life. I even accused him of turning me into to the government and letting them know when I got drafted, letting them know where I was. So he got me drafted too. But so
you're being facetious saying that, right?
But he got me started when I was a junior in high school, for crying out loud, working full time from 3 o'clock to 11, 5 days a week, the whole baseball season. So that's like 6 months. I was working full time as a junior in high school, making good money for the Daily News. And then I got that as a senior too. And then, later on, a couple of years later, they offered me a full-time job. And that's how it all began for me. That
incredible.
was my brother started at Newsday. Oh, we all started Associated Press. We all worked Saturdays, the football season, and we'd go from Queens into Manhattan, and we'd work one day a week on Saturday, the football season, college football, and that's how we all started. My brother-in-law, the same thing. And then my father again, he came to me initially and said, "Look, I have two jobs, and you can have first choice. It's either the Daily News, as a junior in high school, Daily News, or at the NFL." And I took the Daily News. He gave my friend, my friend's name was Peter Hadhazy. He was a Hungarian. I'm Hungarian. He'd come over with his family during the '56 revolution. And Pete was like a year older, but left back because he, the language and stuff. So he took the job at the NFL, okay? Became the general manager of the New England Patriots and the Cleveland Browns, for crying out loud. That, so.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, so, I could have gone that direction maybe, but I didn't, I took the Daily News. So, but there were so many. My brother-in-law, the same thing. He got him a job started. He got so many people jobs. And
Incredible.
just by asking, a friend recently was telling a story about how he started the Daily News. My father called the editor at the News and said, "I have this kid. He's trying to get in there." And okay, no interview. You got the job. The guy became a big journalistic reporter for the Daily News. And, now he's, maybe 60 something years old, but he told a story about, he said, "I didn't even get an interview. It's just your father calling." And so anyway, my father was unbelievable that way. I couldn't get you in the building, but I never could get people jobs. They didn't want anybody that knew me.
Oh, that's a great story. And may I ask, I don't know if your father's still with us. How long ago did he pass? And did you have
he died in '84.
It was a long time ago. Did you have a good relationship?
Oh, my father and I? Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Oh, good. Okay.
Oh, without a doubt. With my both parents. Yeah. And my mother died in 2002.
On a more macro level, Peter, just because you've been working in this industry for so long, and right off the bat, I could tell you do have a cognizant awareness of the importance of the press. Are you worried about our society today in terms of the press, once upon a time serving as a fairly effective watchdog? To me, like the number one variable to fight corruption is the press. It keeps our three branches of government in check. Today, though, because of proliferation, it's like nobody knows who to trust. People are making good money in this industry for the most part. It's hard to do so. What are your thoughts on today's media? Is that too much?
Well, look, I read the Times. I really stay away from the opinions, except Maureen Dowd. She happens to be like my favorite columnist of all time. but for the most part, I really, I read some of it, not much of it. I definitely worry about what's going on. You're going to watch Fox. You're going to watch. Who are you gonna believe? Everybody's got all the journalists on one station are for Trump. Go to the other station, they're all against Trump. It's like, really? I mean, come on now. I don't think it was like that. Look, I grew up with who was the great CBS God? I'm not even
Cronkite.
Cronkite. I mean, I believe in Cronkite. I mean, whatever he said, everyone believed it.
Absolutely.
And but again, I was very apolitical for most of my life. Which cost
Smart.
me. Well, yes and no.
Journalist.
I was drafted in '65, so I didn't. There was a war going on in Vietnam, and I was drafted. And okay, I'll go. I'll do my 2 years, and I went. And so maybe if I was more politically oriented, my younger brother became a conscientious objector. I became a Green Beret. So, our family was, he was a lot smarter than I was. And I listened to my mother a lot. and she was against the war. She was a totally against the war. And so when it came time for me to go to Vietnam, the Berets would only send you for a year. So I'm from 65 to 67. So now they're ready to send me, but I didn't have enough time left. You got to go for a year. So they wanted me to extend for 6 months. And I'm listening to my mother. I'm saying, you know, like, she's against this war. I go to fight in Vietnam and I die. I lose a leg. And she's not happy I'm even there. I said, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to extend the 6 months. And they were pissed off, let me tell you, because they put a lot of training into me, a lot of time, but they couldn't make me extend. And so, you know, I left when I did my 2 years, and that was it. I was out. But I was the only one in my whole group that did not extend. Everybody extended, you know, all the guys that were drafted, and they all went over. And, you know, a couple of them got killed, a couple of them got medals. And I went home and worked at the Daily News.
You became a Hall of Famer, sir. I mean,
literally. The job was waiting for me.
Yeah, bravo. And I mean, look, do you wear that jacket? Is the jacket in your closet? Where do you keep that thing? The Hall of Fame Kurt Gowdy coat that they awarded you?
They don't give you a coat. They give you a trophy. You know, like, if you really want to know, seriously, yes. I was not happy about the whole award. I wound up auctioning it off, and I got whatever I got for it. My line is that whatever people paid for it, you know, they paid 100% too much for it. I just felt that stuff that goes on there is just so ridiculous, and especially when I was going in. First of all, I was 10 years overdue to get into it. So I was pissed off initially. You know, are you kidding me? They're putting people in there that have done nothing, you know, and I had a career in so many different ways, you know, television, you know, and writing. And
you were prominent, sir. You were very prominent.
And so they held it against me because I made a lot of enemies because, you know, I would take on a lot of people. And so there were a lot of people that weren't in the Hall of Fame at that time. And that was part of my speech at the time. It was like, I was so pissed off that, you know, Dennis Johnson wasn't in, you know, Artis Gilmore wasn't in, Jamal Wilkes wasn't in. There was so many guys that weren't in, and I was angry about it. And so, you know, then the ABA guys, they weren't treating them well. Finally, they put some of them in. Jerry Colangelo, who's still, you know, running that thing, he was, you know, you're angry at me because more ABA guys didn't get in. Look what I did. I got these guys in. I said, you didn't get them in. They deserve to be in. Are you kidding me? You know, George McGinnis and Slick Leonard and Mel Daniels and Roger Brown and all those guys, they deserve to be in. You didn't do anything. They had a career. You know, and you're taking credit for getting them in. And there are still so many more that aren't in, like James Jones and, you know, Ron Boone and Matt Calvin and Willie Wise. Those guys belong in. So I got pissed off. And I'm also pissed off because Casey Jones, who obviously Jerry Colangelo has something against, he is not in the Hall of Fame as a coach. Are you kidding me?
That is crazy.
That is totally fucked up.
Yeah. Well, and that's interesting you bring his name up. I was just talking about him a week or two ago, simply because there is a comparison, and correct me if I'm wrong if you don't agree with this sentiment, but to me, there is a clear-cut comparison between Casey Jones and Steve Kerr, who everyone calls a Hall of Fame coach, even though I don't think he's in. He's definitely not in yet. And that's a little surprising to me that Casey Jones is similarly not in, because his tenure with the Celtics was insanely influential. That's wild to me.
2 championships, you know, took the Bullets to the championship round, lost in the championship to, the Warriors. got swept. But, you know, he was Bill Sharman's assistant coach on another championship. You know,
on 2 more, right? Wasn't he also an assistant with the Celtics for the first?
Yes, with Fitch. You know, so he's in as a player. He's more deserving as a coach. He's got one of the highest winning percentages of anybody.
Right.
And the most crazy part of this thing is, when they voted for the top coaches, top 15 coaches of all time, colleagues, peers, they got the vote, the coaches. He's in the top 15 coaches of all time, and he's not in the Hall of Fame as a coach. Jerry Colangelo should just, he should, well, I'm not going to go what he should do, but it's so absurd. It's so absurd. He's totally should be embarrassed, but whatever, so guys like there are other examples, but KC is a perfect example.
That's crazy to me. By the way, apologies for the naivety here. I was not aware that your Hall of Fame speech got a rise out of some people. Jeff Pearlman, I'd love to get your reaction to this because I looked it up as you were speaking, called it the worst Hall of Fame speech ever. That seems harsh. Your reaction, sir.
Who said that?
Jeff Pearlman.
An asshole. He's an asshole. I mean, he's a total asshole. Like he's commenting on my speech. Like he obviously didn't understand it. It's like Sam Smith, who is also in the Hall of Fame, as a writer, wrote the Jordan Rules and many other great books.
Right. Yeah.
He says to this day, he said, Peter, they don't remember anybody else's speech, but they remember yours.
I got to dig this up. I'm gonna find this.
What an asshole! Like he doesn't understand that I'm sticking up for people.
Yeah.
So he doesn't like that I'm being controversial, accepting my speech. I had told them initially when they told me I was getting it that I wasn't going to accept. I was not, because I was so angry about what was going on, who was in, who wasn't in.
Right.
So much politics played. But and then I said no. I said I'll accept it because then maybe I'll have a voice, once I'm in, that'll help get people in. And I did. For 2 years, I was on a committee that got Dennis Johnson into the Hall of Fame. I was on that committee, and I was responsible, for Dennis Rodman getting in. Colangelo was totally against it. And I fought for it. And, at the meeting, we had a meeting, 9 people in a room with Colangelo. And I pointed out why he deserved. They were afraid Dennis was going to show up in a dress. But
I was going to ask you that if the concern was more the lack of scoring or if it was more the behavior. So the behavior was
more than
crazy. Okay.
Defense, championships, what rebounding.
Defense. Yeah, you said that already. Yeah.
Yeah. So Jerry plays his games. Colangelo plays his little games. He's controlling everything, and guys like Jeff Pearlman are like, I don't know, boy, that was terrible speech.
I'm surprised. I Googled it, and it's like the first thing that comes up is this opinion in a blog. Look, you're a Hall of Famer. Who cares what these people say in response to your speech?
I never cared about anything. Yeah.
Well, and I love that about you, sir. And look, Peter, maybe. If you were still doing this today, authenticity thankfully now sells. And for a long time, you had a lot of gatekeepers who stood in the way of genuine, honest speeches and content. And that's all you were doing, which I've never understood why there's something wrong with just being honest. Like Rick Barry, I have this drop. Rick Barry loves this drop that for anytime he's on.
You can't handle the truth.
Because right. that's his line. People can't handle it, and I agree. I totally agree with him.
Rick and I always got along. It's like again when he played in the ABA, I covered him the 2 years he played for the Nets, and we established a relationship there. It's pretty good to this day.
You're both New York boys, yeah. That helps.
Well, he's Jersey. He's Jersey.
Or Jersey. Sorry, I apologize. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, but I've got some Rick Barry stories too. That if I ever write my book, there are a lot of people that are hoping I never do write that book.
I'm not one of them. I will.
No, there are some Rick stories that are going to be in there, but
please
none of my stories. I'm pretty good friends with Bob Ryan, and two guys who we were the two guys that were in the NBA, and he was the man in Boston. I was the man in New York, and Sam Smith came in later on. He was the man in Chicago, but we talk about it. We were different though. See, I'd be breaking balls and breaking stories, and Bob would be he's a tremendous historian, a tremendous passion for everything, and we got along pretty well. We still get along pretty well, but different guys, different ways we did things.
But still produce great stories and terrific content. Peter, I'd be amiss if I didn't bring this up because we are a Warriors show. This offseason has been frustrating, would be underselling, I think, the mood, the feeling for a lot of fans and people who covered the team. I've never seen anything like this. They still only have 9 players on their roster. We're now in September. Training camp and media days, September 29th. Any thoughts on this mess of inaction, of inactivity? Just any opinions that you have, sir?
Well, I mean, look, they're waiting on the key player, whose name is
Jonathan Kuminga.
Yeah, and so look, who can blame him? He's holding out. He's holding out for a contract. He hasn't earned it, but how many players do earn these unbelievable contracts that are being handed out these days? But the way the salary cap is shaped, like I'm not even going to pretend I understand aprons. I mean, I'm glad I don't cover it anymore. Nothing worse than understanding the aprons.
If you don't mind me interrupting a second here, I feel like, Peter, you would figure it out. I'm still learning.
No, I don't want to figure it out.
I know. It's hard. It's not easy.
I don't want any part of it. I used to know the salary cap inside out. I mean, I was around when it started.
Right.
And, the first salary cap was about, I think it was under $5 million for a team. Under $5 million. It was done because the Nets were signing people left and right, and they were trying to control Joe Taub, and they were trying to control Stepien of Cleveland. But and now, God knows. So now there really isn't free agency because these guys are making so much money that there isn't room anymore to put them on teams unless, the Nets are like the only team that has any room, I guess. That's,
yeah.
And, whatever they're going to do, they'll screw it up. The Nets are like, who that owner and general manager, they ought to please move them to Seattle. Get rid of them,
Seattle needs a team. Yeah,
they do. I hope I'm alive to see Seattle get a team back. I love the city, love the Sonics. But so the Warriors are in a bind. In the end, what are they going to do? They're either going to have to kiss them off, just let them sit. And then sign those other players. I'm sure they've got agreements with a bunch of guys, Horford and who else? Horford,
Melton, supposedly Seth Curry, and Peyton, then who knows beyond that?
Peyton
might, yeah.
Yeah, so but none of them are really going to make a difference. The one guy who will make a difference is the guy who's going to get overpaid, but maybe not.
Yeah.
Or is he gonna actually accept the 1-year contract and then take a chance that he gets hurt? I don't think so. They're not. I wouldn't do it. I don't know. I'm not rooting for the Warriors to win any more championships. I am. At the same time, my favorite player, without a doubt, is Curry and Jokic. Those are my two favorite. There aren't too many players that I would pay to see, and those are two of them. I would pay to see them.
Yes, sir.
Yes. If I lived in Memphis, I would have season tickets, to watch, whatever his name is there.
Ja.
Yeah, Ja. I love Ja. God, I wish I could cover Ja. He's like covering Iverson. I would make friends with Ja. I'd calm him down. Make sure he doesn't hang out with his father after games, or during games, or during timeouts or whatever. But boy, is he exciting. So there are a few guys I'd pay to see, but I love Curry. To this day, in New York, we're still upset that the Knicks did not draft him. They They really, we should be talking, forget about all the stuff we just talked about. The main thing that you and I should be talking about is, like, how did Curry wind up a Warrior instead of with the Knicks? Because the Knicks should have gotten him. They
Agreed.
They could have. People don't understand. They could have gotten him. Donnie Walsh, who was a tremendous friend of mine for many, many, many years, he fucked up.
Big time.
Big time. But do you realize how? Do you know how?
Well, enlighten me, please. I'm guessing you know more than I do.
You can say it, but you got to know it. You got to know. Here you've got the Minnesota team has, the 5th and 6th pick. They take back-to-back point guards. They take Rubio. And again, David Kahn was the general manager. We worked to get. First of all, he's a sports writer from Portland. He was a sports writer.
That's how he became the GM. He started as a writer.
Not how he became. No, he was a sports writer, and then he worked. Then he went to law school. But while going to law school, he worked at NBC with me. I was there 12 years, and he tried for my job when it was available. He didn't get it. I got it. 2 guys got it out of 30 tryouts. I got it. Me and Bob Ferry. And so, but he got a job with NBC because that's the kind of guy he is. He was able to get in. He became Bob Costas' guy, and a lot of research for him, and he was good for us. He's very smart, and off of that, Donnie Walsh gives him a break and puts him on the Pacers payroll. And he was the guy that was responsible for the arena being built in Indiana. That was his main job. Off of that, he gets the Minnesota GM job. So I'm setting it up for you. You've got Donnie Walsh now with the Knicks. You got David Kahn with Minnesota, who owes Donnie Walsh his goddamn life, his career. Career. Are you telling me that Donnie couldn't have angled to get that one of those picks? Of course he could have. He could have. He should have. He tried and gave up. But I know for a fact that Kahn would have given him the second pick. For a player, I'm not going to name, in my book I'll name the player. For a player, not a substantial player, but he would have given him that pick. He didn't go back and ask for it. Donnie didn't go back and ask for it. So
that's incredible.
The Knicks should have had Curry. Instead, they got who? Hill. Who's Hill? Did he play more than a couple of years? He's from Arizona. He was a power forward. So the Knicks take Hill because they're so unprepared not to get Curry, but they should have known because Don Nelson was the guy. Don Nelson was the guy that drafted Curry. You could say the general manager, whose name I can't tell you.
It was Larry Riley who sent his oldest daughter out.
He was the GM, but it was Nelson. Nelson coordinated the whole thing. And so Donnie knew it. Donnie knew that, Nelson, they knew it. They should have prepared for it. They should have had him. Okay, they didn't get him. But they were so unprepared, they draft Hill. Do you know who else they could have had in that draft? And we wouldn't even be talking about this anymore.
I'm looking at it right now. So they drafted Jordan Hill, passed up DeMar DeRozan.
Yeah, next. No, DeMar DeRozan. DeMar DeRozan went to Toronto.
Drew Holiday?
Yeah. Drew Holiday went like 17 to Philly. And it's not like he's an unknown. He played for UCLA, for Christ's sake. It's like they also could have had Teagle. Pretty good career. He was in that draft.
Jeff Teague, by the way, is hilarious. I don't know if you ever hear him.
Teague, not Teagle. Teague.
It's okay,
yeah. Yeah.
Were you thinking of Terry Teagle of the Warriors in the
80s? I was. No, I wasn't thinking about him, but it came out of my mouth. Yeah, him and Pierce and Cummings, they were traded for Marcus Johnson, I believe.
Good knowledge, sir.
But anyway, so anyway, that's my story, and I mean, Con owed Donnie Walsh, and he drafted 2 point guards because Ricky Rubio was threatening to stay in Spain.
Correct.
So he was protecting himself. Oh, I get it. I totally get it.
Except for the Johnny Flynn part, right?
Yeah, the Johnny Flynn. He didn't play. He didn't have a great career in college, but he didn't play badly his first year or two. But then he got hurt, and that was it. But he could have. He should have and would have traded that pick.
Well, and New York,
and Nick. Of course, I will say that Curry would have hurt his knee his first year, and his career would have been over. So that would have
been. Well, and he wanted to go to New York.
Absolutely.
Steph's father has attested to that repeatedly. When you bring up David Kahn, because I remember reading all these articles back then during his tenure, and the repeated laugh that people would get is this clip right here, and this is from Star Trek and the great William Shatner. That's it. That became famous entirely because of David Kahn.
Why that clip?
Because that was from Star Trek 2, and apparently that moment where Shatner's character yells "Khan!" It just
Khan. He's yelling Khan.
He's yelling Khan. Yeah.
I couldn't tell it. Okay. So yeah. I mean, David's now owning a team in France. I think he spends half his thing. He's got some money and stuff, and I think he spends half the time over in France. And
wow.
But I'm not gonna look. He did what he had to do. I blame Donnie as much as David. They man, oh man.
I get it. I follow the logic, and it's funny that you credit Don Nelson. The one person here in the Bay Area media scene who has echoed those sentiments is Larry Krueger. I don't know how familiar you are with him.
I know Larry Krueger.
Yeah, there you go. So, and Larry says that exact same thing. That forget Larry Riley. Even though Stephen Curry again named his first child Riley, his daughter, after him, as an homage of sorts, but he says the same thing you do, and I don't disagree with either of you. That Don Nelson was the mastermind.
Well, there's absolutely no question about it. It's the same as Don Nelson was responsible for drafting the Dallas Luka. So he got two guys, all timers.
Yeah,
he could judge talent. His son was certainly involved with the Luka thing. His son was over there scouting him and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean Nelson. When he wasn't high, he was probably pretty good at recognizing.
Well, he had some misses too. Billy Owens was a huge miss.
Huge, not that huge. I mean, who else? Again, I can't.
Well, they traded Mitch Richmond essentially for him. That's why I call it huge. It was a risk. They broke up Run TMC, but look, nobody's perfect, right? It was a.
No, Jerry West made some bad moves.
Yeah, there you go.
But again, people talk about how Bob Myers was the architect of championships for the Warriors. It's a bunch of bullshit. He wasn't there for Curry.
No,
he didn't draft Klay Thompson. That was Jerry West was there. He wasn't even the GM then. He was the GM.
He was the assistant at that point, and then
he was a voice in a room, but he didn't have any power or anything like that. And anytime people on TV, you were the architect. He doesn't dispute it. He doesn't say, well, I came 2 years after Curry, and
he smiles and nods. What's funny? Last week.
Rick and I'm going back to Jerry West. And if it wasn't for Jerry West saving his ass, he would have traded Curry. He would have traded Klay Thompson and Draymond Green. He would have traded those guys, and I know that for a fact.
Oh wow!
And Jerry West saved it. He said he was going to quit if the trade for Kevin Love went through for Klay Thompson and Draymond Green. He was going to quit. So, this genius, this architect, who's terrible on TV also, Like, God, what a stiff. Are they going to, hopefully they get rid of him.
Well, I would love you and Bob to be in a room someday so you can call him out on that, because Bob,
man. I mean,
because Bob, I don't know. I'm just,
I do it on Twitter all the time, and nobody reacts. They all like pretend that, oh yeah, no, he really is the architect. Yeah. He even screwed Mark Jackson, that one year, that one time, when Jared Jack was such a good player.
Phenomenal.
Such a good player for Mark. He doesn't bring him back. He brings in the white kid from Maryland, the white guard, who was terrible. That's who we replaced him with. So he had a deficiency as the backup point guard for the, like, unbelievable. And again, Mark, you guys in the Bay Area have screwed over Mark big time.
Not me. I give him his credit. I repeat, I will forever, like, believe me, I'm one of the folks, and I don't know if you agree or not, but I'm one of the only folks who criticizes Steve Kerr for a lot of mess ups. Look, I mean, he was the head coach of 4 championships. He's going to get in the Hall of Fame. He deserves his credit for that, but he did not build this thing. Mark Jackson did. That's an argument I at least say, that the foundation.
And I will say that Steve has given him credit for that too, because he has to. He has to,
yeah.
Because the team sucked before Mark took over. The team was in the lower third for how many years in the
almost
league?
40
of
almost
everything,
40.
Defense, wins, everything and then they come in, they make the playoffs 2 years. So he got totally screwed. And
he did.
And true story's never been told about, what happened there. Like the media, the Bay Area media is just, subservient to the owner of the team, and they never went after the real story. They're still writing bullshit about what happened. Do you know for a fact that the Warriors offered Mark to re-sign a contract? They wanted to extend his contract the year before he got fired, and he turned it down because it was a low ball. And they offered Myers the same. They offered to redo his contract too, and he took it. And he told Mark, he said, well, you can afford to not take it. He said, I have to take it. I have to take the low ball offer. You'll be okay. But the team was ready to re-sign him. And then they make up all these stories about him. All the media just kisses the asses of the owners and the owner's son. And it goes on and on and on, and the lies. Mark Jackson made a huge mistake. I tried to tell him many times. It's too late now. So you don't answer any of it. You don't go back. You don't go back at them and let them know what really happened. And he doesn't. And he did a little bit with some jerk on podcast. But not as much as what happened. And another thing I'll tell you, that the media there is delinquent, defective, never knew. But Lacob got angry at Mark because the Brooklyn Nets tried to get to interview Mark for the opening. And Mark said, and I warned him at the time, because owners do not like this. Mark said, yeah, I'd like to get the interview. Well, that pissed them off. It's the same thing that happened with Kiki Vandeweghe in Denver. He got offered an interview, I think, with Cleveland. As soon as he took the interview, as soon as he said, I don't know if he took the interview, as soon as he said he wanted it, the owner of Denver said, gone.
Crazy. Gone. Ego's a twisted thing, man.
Well, the agents, totally fucked it up. Like, what are you doing? Why are you putting him out there like that? Yeah, but the Nets wanted him, and they said no. Not only no, but now we're going to hold it against you that you were ready to say, yeah, I'd like the interview. So many things that the Warrior, the media in the Bay Area just has no conception of what went on. They just take the bullshit that's handed out by the PR department or the owner's son. There's stories about that kid too, but whatever.
Well, no, Peter, you're just everything you've said has been the speeches I've given for years now. This Bay Area media scene, at least sports wise, I don't have enough research under my belt to comment on just the overall news reporting, but Bay Area sports media is pathetic. Like if someone has talent in this scene, they're coming on this show. Sorry if I sound arrogant saying that, but I even have these back and forths with the ones that I like. It's like, why are you so, as a journalist, you're supposed to be objective. You're supposed to approach this from a neutral standpoint and report the facts. And all of these media folks here in the Bay Area, besides being soft, like a take that I give that riles people up, is just another Tuesday on the East Coast. So you already have an audience that and a demographic that's pretty soft. But then the media folks themselves, man, they're all about self-preservation. They're all about, can the Warriors hire me? It's really sad, man.
Right.
It's really sad.
You know, it would be one thing if they just went out and did a little bit of research. You know, it's like, you know, let's just Rick Welch, right? I know one woman I read. I don't think she's from the Oakland area. I think she's outside. I don't remember her name. She actually went to Rick Welch and asked him about, you know, the gay stuff with Mark. You know, did Mark have any problem with him being gay and all that stuff? And Rick said, absolutely not. You know, we sat down, we talked about it. I have no problem with Mark. One woman journalist, the rest of them, no, they still go with that gay stuff, you know, that he was, he was against whatever the guy's name who said he was, what's his name, the center that came out as being gay. And Mark said, I'll pray for him.
Collins, one of the Collins.
And they go, Mark, he's in. No. Mark wasn't saying pray for him because he just said he knew how tough it was going to be for him. That's why he was going to pray for him. But they didn't bother to ask, delve into what went on with it. The owner asked Mark at the last meeting about that. He asked him about it. He said, what if I was, what if I came out as being gay? So Mark said, I'd pray for you too. At the meeting. So at the last meeting, the Last Supper.
Well, and just adding to that, and again, zero pushback from me because I've seen it all directly here, living here. Adding to that, and this is a story most people don't know. And again, journalistic integrity, what happened to it? Stephen Curry was attributed by Marcus Thompson of The Athletic as making a joke that where the target was the transgender community. And it was a very lighthearted joke. It is not something that, in hindsight, would have gotten Stephen Curry in trouble. It's not something that I think would have turned into this huge shitstorm. Nonetheless, Marcus Thompson quoted that attribution. Next day, the story does not exist. And when people were asking why, the excuses made no sense other than the Athletics editor saying, oh, there was some sort of fact check error. They deleted the story. And if Deadspin didn't pick up on it back when they had integrity, I don't know what the hell's going on with them now. Right. No one would even be aware to this day. Yeah. But there are literal examples.
I'm not aware of that story. I didn't know about it.
Exactly. And it's pretty wild, man. If you Google, I think if you Google like Stephen Curry transgender joke, it'll be the first thing that comes up. Right. It's crazy to me, man. Again, like Rick Barry loves this soundbite.
You can't handle the truth.
People can't.
Along those same lines, though, if the media out there had gone to the Collins brothers and family and asked about Mark, but they would tell them, we have no problem with Mark.
Yeah.
We have none, absolutely none. But no, they just know he's anti-gay. He's all this unbelievable stuff that went on. There's so many things that went on. Let me tell you about it.
Yeah.
And again, I think Mark really, and I know Mark should have answered. He should have, but that's not him. He's not that type of guy. He'll back off and, let it go and, whatever.
It does suck that he's never been hired anywhere else. That's the part that puzzles me a bit.
Well, again, it might be over now because to me, he should be the Knicks coach. There is no way that they shouldn't have hired him several times.
Yes.
If they had hired him, again, Donnie Walsh had committed to Mark Jackson as the Knicks coach before he hired D'Antoni, he had committed to him. I know that for a fact. And he said, "What? But I'm going out to Arizona to interview D'Antoni because he's look what he's done. I don't like he doesn't play any defense. I don't like that at all. But I'm just going to go out there." He comes back and he hires him, and forget the commitment to Mark. Had he hired him, Mark would still be the coach of the Knicks. And if Phil Jackson hadn't let Steve Kerr slide after he committed to the
right.
Knicks, yep. I don't know if he ever signed that contract. I never asked Phil about it, but that was one of Phil's biggest mistakes as the Knicks president. Whatever. Why would you let him slide? You thought he was the best guy for the job, and now you're stuck. Who am I going to hire? Oh, Derek Fisher. I'll hire Derek Fisher. Well, that didn't work out.
No.
And again, if Kerr had become the Knicks coach, would he have a job today? How many jobs would he have? No,
none.
He'd be gone too.
He'd be gone too.
So it's like, going back. So Mark has had opportunities. Let me tell you, they don't get out. But he has had opportunities to coach. No, he's had opportunities where he almost got the job, and I'll give you two right off the bat. When the Minnesota, Dave Kahn again, here we go, David Kahn. When Minnesota was looking for a he hired Rambis instead of Mark Jackson.
Oof.
He was down to those two. Oh my God. Rambis, who might be the NBA's all-time worst coach ever, hires him. Years later, he's in the final two again at Minnesota. He's flown out to Minnesota to meet with the owner at the owner's house, or maybe it was the son-in-law's house with the owner is there, and he's up for the job against Thibodeau. They had a good meeting. The next morning, Thibodeau is hired not only as the coach, but as the general manager also.
Right.
He totally screwed up that team. So there have been instances. A couple of years ago, he had a chance. He was down to him and Mike Brown to be the coach of Sacramento. And, people don't know these things. The owner was for Mark.
Really?
Absolutely.
Vivek. Okay.
And the general manager and the assistant general manager, they wanted Mike Brown, and the owner let them pick. Well, look who's left. None of them are left. So it was down to that. It was like, so there are many instances where, again, the media is asleep at the wheel. They don't know what's going on. But now this time, the Knicks did not even interview him. He tried to get an interview. They didn't interview him. It could be over. I mean, he would take an assistant's job now. He wouldn't do that initially. He would definitely take one now. I hope somebody hires him. He could have had several college jobs. He could have had the St. John's job before Mullen. He didn't want that. But there you go. So now I'm bringing you up to date on all that.
No, and good for Mark to have the luxury of being picky about his next opportunity. I mean, more power to you.
I don't think it's picky anymore.
But look, on this program, at least, we will forever give Mark Jackson his flowers, the respect he deserves for being an integral part of the Warriors flipping a script that, as you saw, you covered the Warriors when Rick Barry was on that team. When Rick Barry left, they never recovered. There were little brief moments, right? Run TMC. You had Chris Webber for a year. You had the We Believe team in 2007, but these were just little blips in an otherwise very bleak run of decades until the Stephen Curry era. And side note, I'm sharing my screen right now to Deadspin. That story's still up if you ever are curious yourself to check it out, of the Athletic story written by Marcus Thompson that just got taken down because the Warriors accused them of fabricating the joke.
Wow, how about that?
Insane.
How about that?
Insane.
Like the guy's going to make up this joke.
Exactly.
Come on, man.
It was so the collusion there was so obvious. And Marcus Thompson, side note, has great sources, right? I think he's one of the closest media members to Stephen Curry, and he did that largely for preservation purposes. But where's the integrity at that point? It's yeah, you know,
well,
what are you going to
do? I think Thompson's a really good writer, but where is he with any of these stories that I've told you today? Did he have any of them? Any of them? No, not one. And I don't know if he's written negative stories about Mark, but other writers there have continued to, and nobody answers them. I wish I still wrote. I'd be going after those guys personally every time I write.
Peter, you told me before we started recording, don't ever retire. Yet you're retired. Why are you not getting out of retirement and writing? It's so easy to do. What's holding you back?
Well, it's not easy to do. First of all,
Fair enough.
Not. I never liked the deadlines. The pressure was always there.
But what I'm saying is you don't have to worry about that. You can do a Substack. You can do a Medium, something that's independent. Right. Well, that's yours.
I'll tell you why. So the main reason is I don't know anybody anymore. I don't know the general managers. I don't know many of the coaches. I don't know any of the inside guys. The agents, for the most part, I don't want to know. A lot of them are still around.
They are.
I've cut them off long ago.
I don't blame you for that. But they've got agendas.
They've got agendas. Things I would cut them off. They lied to me once they were done. But so I don't. That's one reason. I can't spell any of the goddamn names anymore. I mean, are you kidding me? Forget about pronouncing them. If I had to do it on television, I'd be like Johnny Most, like doing a game. Remember that thing where number 24 I did this and number 10. He couldn't pronounce the name. And the last thing is, I can't identify the assholes anymore.
It's a challenge. All I'm saying, Peter, is if you decide to just write columns that are just strictly your opinion based on your observation of at least the action you can see on TV, I think you'd have an audience, sir. I'd read it. I'd bring you on to promote it. Just throwing it out there. That's
I do it on Twitter for nothing.
There you go.
I'm fine with that. I'm pretty controversial on there, pretty observant on there, things that I see. I still hear stuff. But I'm not really into breaking stuff anymore. So I'll let a lot of stuff go. For what reason do I have to do it? But no, I'm comfortable where I'm at. I'm good.
Well, there you go. That's all that matters, right? If you're happy, that's yeah. But
thank God for for SAG and for pensions and.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Well, look, Peter, I grew up
watching Security.
Yeah, and I hope you get a nice bump. You and everyone else getting it deserves so you can keep up with these insane prices. The cost of living, sir, is wild. But that's a whole other show. Peter, again, you mentioned Twitter and how you express your thoughts there. People can follow you if you're watching this on YouTube right there at Peter Vecsey 1. Vecsey spelled, the C is first. It's Vecsey, followed by the number 1. And I'm guessing you have Peter Vecsey 1 because some asshole took Peter Vecsey. Is that correct? It's not why you don't have Peter Vecsey.
I don't know why I did it. No, it's just at Peter Vecsey 1. That's all it is. Yeah.
There you go. No. There you go. And it's always a pleasure, sir. I grew up watching you. You were one of the figures in this sport. I'm so happy you got into the Hall of Fame. I'm going to find that video because I was oblivious to the fact that you had a speech that apparently some assholes went so far as to write their own thoughts on it. That's insane. But now I got to watch this thing. I'm excited. You're a legend. Is there anything I missed? Is there anything you'd like to promote, sir, before I?
No promotion. No promotion. Good time. Good.
Thank you, sir.
Talk.
Likewise. And I'm sure the audience feels the same way. And look, if you ever write that book, if anything does come up, I'd love to bring you back. And if you don't mind, I'll hit you up next summer to see how you're doing and if you'd like to come back, sir. But
cool.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Later.
That was Peter Vecsey for you. I'm guessing if you were wondering, who the hell is this guy? Who did Cy bring on his show? By the end, hopefully you got a little inkling as to the reasoning behind it. He was the man once upon a time. He was controversial, yes. But, he also understood that a little controversy moves that needle, keeps things interesting. And that's important for an industry where it's all about entertainment, right? I also really enjoyed the diving into the whole revisiting of journalistic integrity and how, at least here in the Bay Area, it's sorely lacking. Great insights from Peter as well about Mark Jackson, who on this program, if you're a Golden Dazer, we show our love to him when deserved. And the same goes for, again, Peter Vecsey, a legend once upon a time in this industry. He's still on Twitter, so go follow him at Peter Vecsey1 and catch up on some NBA history. He loves to deep dive into some old school stuff. Love Peter. Love you. Thank you. This episode will be available for Golden Dazers. We recorded this on September 2nd. It'll be available to the public on September 3rd. So if you're watching this on what day is today? I'm recording right now. It's Tuesday. So if you're watching this on Wednesday, sorry. I hope you enjoyed that. And by the time you're watching this, the live episode that I've recorded with Mark Haynes, we're going to start doing this every week. It debuts tonight. And again, it probably already debuted by the time you're watching this. Tuesday nights at 8:30 p.m. Pacific time. We're calling it tentatively the I-80 crossover. Maybe we'll call it Golden Kings. I don't even know. But it should be fun. And considering the Sacramento Kings are heavily interested in Jonathan Kuminga, we're going to have a lot to talk about. So I hope you join us for that. I hope you join us for every episode. Can't thank you enough. Hit the like button because everyone tells me the algorithm loves that and it helps programming. Obviously, subscribe to the show, please, if you have not. And one more time, thank you to Peter Vecsey for joining the show. We'll be back at this soon as always. I think we're done. Bye-bye.